Oh, hi there, everyone. It's Jason Hillier here with Arctic Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining. I see a few more folks have joined us, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. So just very quickly, just a couple of housekeeping items here. You are on mute during today's webinar, but you are able to ask questions, and you can do so by simply typing into the chat window that you'll see in the control panel. That's probably on the right-hand side of your screen. And should time allow, I will be answering those questions at the end of the webinar. In the event that we don't have time, then someone from Arctic Kingdom will get back to you in very short order. I expect today's webinar to be roughly around 20 minutes or so. So with that, why don't we just jump right in? For those that don't know me, and as I've just said, my name is Jason Hillier. I'm the Vice President of Product Management, and I am an expedition leader here at Arctic Kingdom as well. Today's webinar is it's a very special trip and one that we're proud to offer. It's entitled Kings of the Arctic, and it's focused on the amazing safari experience that we have in an area in Igloolik, in the territory of Nunavut. So we'll talk a little bit more of that in a second. So in today's webinar, we're also going to talk about a little bit about Arctic Kingdom, who it is that who is Arctic Kingdom, I should say, and why travel with us. Where is it that we're going on this trip? What can one expect on this safari? What are the accommodations like? What is the floe edge, and in particular, the floe edge in the Fox Basin area at this time of year? And last but not least, we'll talk a little bit about the Arctic Kingdom team and how easy it will be to join us on this amazing trip in July. So we'll just jump right in with a few things about Arctic Kingdom. For those that don't know us, we've been around for almost 20 years now. So we've been crafting trips into the Arctic and primarily in the Eastern Arctic since 1999. And Igloolik is special and near and dear to us because it actually is the very first location that we ran a safari in 1999. Arctic Kingdom is, without a doubt, the global leader in land-based travel in the Arctic. Unlike any other operator in the world, we offer polar bear tours virtually year-round. So we have a polar bear viewing safari or a trip and experience for every single season of the year. We are the pioneers of the Arctic safari, so we are the originators of the high-end safari in the Arctic, and no one has the unlimited access to remote locations that we do. No one has the inventory of experiences that we have and the breadth of expertise. We have experienced staff on staff and naturalists on staff, along with local Inuit guides. We can tailor a pretty amazing and immersive experience in some of the most remote locations on Earth. We do all of this in a scheduled departure type of setting, but we also pride ourselves in the private and bespoke experiences that we're able to create. So let's talk a little bit about Kings of the Arctic. This experience allows any visitor into the region and any trip participant to effectively get very up close with walrus, bowhead, and polar bears. It is a tented safari camp on land. Here we are exploring the floe edge and spectacular landscapes of Fox Basin. And I'll show you on a map just exactly where that is in just a few moments for those of you that don't know exactly where this is. And we'll talk a little bit about what the floe edge is as well further into the webinar. It's at this time of year where we are experiencing the midnight sun. So it's 24 hours of daylight. We have an amazing culinary team on hand that are creating beautiful gourmet meals. So at the end of every day, it's 5-star dining under the midnight sun. So it's a very special experience out on the land and certainly back in camp as well for that at the end of the day beautiful meal that one can have. We like to say we also travel on the Canadian dollar. So for those friends of ours that are on the call from the U.S., that's a little bit of an added incentive to travel with us into the Canadian Arctic, certainly. So this location, where is it? Igloolik. You may not have heard of it, but it is a high Arctic experience in the sense that it is truly above the Arctic Circle. And it is one of the oldest Inuit communities in the Canadian Arctic. It's considered by many, and certainly by folks in Nunavut, to be the cultural hub of Nunavut and of Inuit culture. So there's a lot of deep history here in this small hamlet. So how does one get to Igloolik? Well, it's a pretty straightforward affair. First Air is our preferred carrier from Ottawa, Ontario, and from Ottawa, which is just off this map, but on the bottom of the map, we'll say, on the bottom of your page, it's a flight into Igloolik, and that flight will leave at 9 a.m., 7 days a week, and it's a Boeing 737, so it's a jet flight to Igloolik, and it's roughly a 3-hour flight. And in Igloolik, there's a brief layover where we would change planes into another commercial flight onwards to Igloolik. So it's roughly 3 hours to Igloolik, a changeover in a new, modern, and spacious airport, and then another quick 2.5 to 3 hours over to Igloolik. That may or may not be a direct flight. There may be a small or a very short stop in a place called Hull Beach, which is literally about 15 to 20 minutes away from Igloolik. So almost a direct flight. It's pretty straightforward and very easy, but everything is done with schedule there with scheduled times that align with our trip dates, of course. So the location is out on the land. So Igloolik is an island and it's off the mainland. The camp location itself is situated outside of the community of Igloolik, and it's situated on an Arctic beach, but it is on the land. As I mentioned before, we are above the Arctic Circle, so that's giving us a little bit of a bragging right, I guess, in that we are above the Arctic Circle. It's 24 hours of daylight, and it's well above the tree line here. The Fox Basin area, which is directly to the east of Igloolik and in the body of water that you see on this map here, is extremely biologically diverse. Home to the largest walrus population in Canada. This area here is also well renowned for its bowhead whale population. And at this time of year, the bowhead whales are congregating in this area, waiting for the ice to break up and to move so they can pass through from east to west through the Hecla Fury Strait, which is just directly due north of Igloolik. So that little band of water that you see right here, I'm going to highlight this for you hopefully in just a moment, is where the bowhead whales will basically traverse from the east of the Fox Basin area over to the west into their summer breeding and calving grounds. So let's talk a little bit more about the trip. It's a 7-day, 6-night experience with 5 nights in base camp. All northern ground transfers are included in the trip. That we will meet you in Igloolik to effectively transfer you over to the camp. And then we will actually work with you, meet you and greet you in Igloolik with your expedition leader and then transfer you to camp as well. So basically, once you're in the air from Ottawa, we're going to be there to meet you and escort you every step of the way. You certainly have the services of the Arctic Kingdom trip leaders and local guides. All the meals in camp are provided for, and like I had mentioned, these are gourmet meals, and snacks and beverages certainly are included in that as well. And no single supplement applies. So if you're a single individual traveler, if you're willing to share tent accommodations with another traveler of the same sex, the same gender, then we are able to waive the single supplement. So it's shared accommodations. And speaking of shared, the washroom facilities with a shower and hot and cold running water, sinks, and a full-size podium toilet. It's an eco toilet that we use within our facilities, within our camp, I should say, is a shared washroom. So once we're in the camp, how is it that we're getting around? How are we doing our game drives? In its essence, this trip is a boating trip in many respects, in that we are using small boats to maneuver through ice floes into the floe edge, or up to the floe edge, I guess I should say. And the floe edge is where we have land-fast ice, so a massive body of ice that's affixed to shore. But it's that ice that's breaking up and moving and drifting away that we're going to meander through in these boats to find our stunning walrus, our polar bear that's stalking a seal, and the bowhead whales, as I mentioned, which are congregating in the area. What's really unique about this location is that we have the ability to travel if we want to, certainly in conditions allowing great distances. So the second point here is that we're basically going to be determining where we travel based on ice conditions, based on wind conditions, based on wildlife, based on proximity to wildlife and the experiences we've had before, and our encounters that we have had. But at the end of the day, there are multiple locations from which we can go and explore the area. And so there's a lot of there's a diverse range of trips, I guess, from experiences that we will partake in through this trip, just due to the courses that we'll take, or the routes that we will take to try and find the wildlife. Without a doubt, this area is rich in wildlife, and it's renowned in the Arctic for its rich diversity of megafauna. So bowhead whales, I mentioned, walrus, polar bears, seals, and seabirds are abundant at this time of year. The Arctic at this time of year is truly coming alive. And with the pleasant temperatures that we experience in the 24 hours of daylight, there's unlimited possibility to have very close encounters with these majestic animals that are in this area at this time of year. Generally and typically, the weather is quite agreeable, and so mirror smooth waters can be expected, floating ice pans, some of them quite big enough that we can stop the boat and get out and literally have a picnic lunch on a floating piece of ice, which is pretty spectacular. We have local Inuit guides and Arctic Kingdom trip leaders as our core team on this trip. And as I mentioned, the meals we pride ourselves in the food that we're able to provide. So every single lunch that's out on the land, out doing our game drive, will be a hot lunch. We'll serve it on the ice. So whether it's on the floe edge itself, which is the bigger body of ice, or it's a significant ice pan size that we deem as safe, that we'll stop and literally can hang out on all week if we wanted to. That's where we'll take our lunches. So in and in itself, pretty special experience. We'd like to say that we can always recharge our batteries, both our internal batteries and our camera batteries, in our heated tents at the end of the day. So literally and figuratively, at the end of every day, you're recharging your equipment and yourself and your spirit of adventure on this great trip. Another sort of added bonus is the ability to snorkel in the high Arctic. So although this may not be for everyone, for those that do partake, it's always a pretty unique, fun activity. As you can see here, we have a little rope that we tie around you so you don't travel too far from us. But at the end of the day, just being able to snorkel in the Arctic Ocean in a dry suit, so you are dry, you're not getting wet. We'll provide the dry suit, the mask, the fins, the snorkels, and all of that is complimentary and part of the overall experience. We truly, pardon the pun, want to immerse our clients in the Arctic, and what better way to really truly get in the spirit of the trip than by getting into the water and becoming one with it. So the conditions are quite nice at this time of year. As you can see here, in Celsius, we're ranging anywhere from 3 to 5 degrees up to 10 degrees in Celsius at the middle of the day. So it can certainly get up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of the day. As we are proximate to the ocean and on the water, certainly the wind can be a little bit chilly, and it's for that reason we make sure that our clients are warm and comfortable. Our local Inuit guides are a critical and important part of our team. They are the ones that have the knowledge of the land and where the animals are and what the ice conditions are, and ultimately how to traverse safely in this environment. So bringing their knowledge to bear is is paramount to this experience, so that you can understand what it means to live and work and survive in this amazing area, and at the same time we can showcase for you some of the Inuit culture. And so whether that's talking about life or having a demonstration of maybe some drumming or some singing, I think that's really what kind of wraps this trip up and makes it a super special experience as well. So this trip is fantastic for family and group travel because of the small group size and the relatively warm temperatures comparative to anywhere else in the Arctic at this time of year. It truly is a great opportunity for families and groups who want to unplug and reconnect. You know, we are off the grid here. There is no cell phone reception. Kids have to put the iPads away. It's about reconnecting and spending quality time together. And we say that this is definitely one of our better trips to do just that. As I don't believe I may have mentioned, but you know, the group or the capacity here is only 10. So the maximum group capacity here is 10. So the groups are very small, very intimate. And just a reminder that I do see a few questions popping up. We'll be getting to the questions at the end of the webinar, should time allow. And in the event that we just run out of time, then what we will be doing is answering those questions on a one-on-one basis following the webinar. But just bear with us just a little bit longer, and we'll probably wrap up in 10 or 15 minutes here. So let's talk a little bit about the accommodations. Everyone wants to know where I will be sleeping. This is a tented safari camp on land, and as I mentioned, the camp accommodates up to 10 guests. These are heated double occupancy sleep tents. We have a dining lounge tent that as well, and as I had mentioned, there are shared washrooms with running hot water sinks and showers and full-size podium toilets. This camp is we're trying to minimize our footprint in that all waste and all garbage goes back into the community for proper disposal. So this is a leave no footprint type of experience. These tents here, they're comfortable. Like I mentioned, they're heated. They are the smallest one will be 100 square feet, and I believe that's pretty standard for all of these. They're usually a 10 by 10 tent. One or two of them may have a vestibule to give a little bit more storage space. But at the end of the day, there's twin-size beds. They are approximately 6'9" in the tent itself, so certainly ample room to stand up, walk around. You know, they're almost 7 feet tall and quite spacious. So let's talk a little bit about the wildlife and the scenery. The Fox Basin, as I'd mentioned, is an amazing location to get the kings of the Arctic. Truly, the biggest marine mammals in the Arctic are congregating in this area at this time of year. So it's bowhead whales, it's pods of walrus that are not necessarily hauling out on shores or on land, but are on ice pads that are floating by, ice that's floating by. So pack ice that's broken from the floe edge. They'll literally sun themselves in herds of as much as 10 or 15, and sometimes just one or two solos flying around as well. Mothers and their babies are a pretty common occurrence. We've had some pretty magical encounters on this trip with babies and mothers. It's here where we did some shooting with the Disney film Oceans, and we were able to capture. We were fortunate enough to capture some amazing scenes, I should say, of a mother, you know, embracing a calf in the water. So it's those types of moments that we're always angling for. This area is also rich in seal life, and here we see a bearded seal, which is, you know, not as common as the ring seal in the north, but absolutely a species that we will be able to see. These are very large animals, and once you see them, they're hard to forget. So this place, as you can see, is it's special. It's very serene. It's a beautiful, quiet place where one can reflect and totally unplug, and where you can get a scale or a sense of scale that's second to none. This is absolutely big sky country with a limitless horizon as far as the eye can see. We've had some pretty amazing bowhead whale encounters here. You know, in early July, it's very common to see hundreds of bowhead congregating in this area, and so we always have our fingers crossed that we're going to have that type of special moment where we're seeing many whales waiting within the pack ice, waiting for the floe edge to recede before they move through that strait in the map I'd shown earlier. A couple shots of some clients, just mugging it up for the camera a little bit, but you can see here that it's a very different type of trip in the sense that the experience that one's going to have is like nothing else. And so here we're stopping, having a little, have taken a little break, literally on a piece of ice that's floating from the floe edge. Again, some more shots of walrus. A very common sight all throughout the Fox Basin area this time of year. And here we're having just a little break, a little snack. So it's this type of travel that really makes this trip experience. So we're navigating by small boat, weaving in through the ice. We're always on the outlook for whales and bears and seals. We know where iconic bird cliffs are, so we're traveling to see sea cliffs. That'll give us just a juxtaposition to the flat, iconic sort of landscape that predominates this area. Everyone loves a selfie with a walrus. So just a little bit about our team over the next few slides here, and we'll talk a little bit about how to join us on this great trip. Arctic Kingdom prides itself in bringing the world class leading expedition leaders out on our trips. Our local Inuit guides are critical and paramount to everything that we do for reasons I just explained. They are the ones that know this land intimately, and we rely on their expertise to bring us to where the animals are. We will have an executive chef and assistant on this trip, so the food will absolutely be second to none. And we pride ourselves in being able to provide amazing meals and being able to meet the dietary requirements of our clients as well. There will be a full-time camp manager and a bear monitor as well in the camp to keep everybody safe and warm and comfortable. And other specialists are available upon request, or they may even be part of the trip staff. So for that client amongst you, or that person that's looking for something to be very specifically focused on a certain feature or species, or they're really looking to understand a little bit more, maybe wanting to do this trip on a bespoke basis, we can make sure that the right staff member is there and part of the team, so that the client is getting as much information from the experience as they want. Our sales team are available 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, generally a bit later, let's just say 9 to 6 on Eastern time. And they're here to help and happy to answer questions that you may have. Our client services coordinator is part of our field operations team. So for every trip that we offer, there will always be an in-depth briefing materials. There will be hotel information and post-sales client care to ensure that your experience from start to finish is as seamless as possible. For those that wonder about, okay, the warmth and the dryness and how do I stay comfortable, if you don't own a parka, if you don't own the right pair of boots, or you think that you don't, then call the sales team. They'll be able to talk you through what this trip needs. And at the end of the day, we can ultimately rent to you exactly the equipment that you need. So we have a polar clothing rental package that's available to you for the duration of the trip. You simply drop it off, pick it up and drop it off in Ottawa at your airport, at your hotel, I apologize. And it's as simple as that. And we make sure you're wearing the same clothing, the same gear that our trip leaders are wearing. So it's the right gear. So the last but not least, how do you get yourself on this amazing trip? You speak to your travel advisor or contact us directly. We're booking up fairly quickly into our July season right now, so there are a few spots left. We would encourage you to call us sooner than later if you're contemplating this trip to get some questions answered, so that you don't miss your chance to be one of 20 clients experiencing this amazing location this year, because it is at this time 2 groups of 10 and only 20 clients. So it's there's a little bit of a bragging right there to say that you're one of only a few people ever to have traveled in this amazing area at this special time of year. So thank you so much for your time. I think we're roughly in and around time. I wanted this to be about 25, 30 minutes. So I think with that, I'll jump into a few questions and hopefully I can answer them for you. There's a question, is this time of year better for polar bear viewing than winter, and how close can you get to polar bears? Well, it's not really an easy question to answer, but it is a good time of year to view polar bears. I would say that if you are looking to only exclusively view polar bears, then there may be a better trip for you than this one, because this trip it's more than just polar bears. It's about whales, the environment, the landscape, I should say, and finding walrus as well. So we're not specifically and exclusively focused on polar bear, but every opportunity we have to see one, we'll certainly take it. And we can get fairly close. So a polar bear that's drifting on some pack ice or swimming, we respect certainly the distance that we need to maintain through because of the animals, because of safety certainly, and then the animals, just not to disturb the animal. The word I'm looking for, and with that, the animal will ultimately dictate how close we can get to it, but we do maintain a safe distance, usually in and around 100 meters. There's a question about seeing bowhead whales and other wildlife, but no narwhal, and that is correct. So although there is an occasion or a chance to see a narwhal on this trip is not known for narwhal, and I would never tell you that we would be experiencing narwhal on this trip. We have other programs earlier in the year, particularly in May and June, that we can get narwhal on, but this trip is not going to be a narwhal experience. There's a question here asking about weather-related air delays, inbound or outbound from Igloolik. So it's every situation is going to be handled as it occurs, and it's going to be a fairly standard approach, and that there is a hotel in Igloolik as well as our camp will always be available to clients. So as an example, inbound into Igloolik, if there's a delay, that delay may very well be in Ottawa or in Igloolik. But once we are in Igloolik, there is nothing that's going to prevent us from getting into the camp. We have hotel accommodations on reserve in Igloolik in the event of a weather delay, and in Igloolik as a backup as well. If a trip is delayed, our clients that are on safari, they stay in the camp ultimately until they're able to leave, and that's obviously at no additional cost. And for those folks that may be delayed on an inbound leg of the trip, it will be handled with based on where they are. So whether that's overnighting in Igloolik or overnighting in Ottawa, then ultimately that's something we can look into. And our terms and conditions are quite clear about how we handle that. So thank you for that question. Then there's another question about presentation concerning the narwhal trip. And so there is a presentation that's out on a YouTube channel, and I will get that information out to you. If you're not able to locate it specifically on our website or on our YouTube Arctic Kingdom channel, but I'll be able to share that link with you. So thank you for that comment, and I look forward to sharing that with you. So no other questions at this time, but by all means, please feel free to reach out. Please call. Don't ever hesitate to drop us a line or give us a call. We're always happy to discuss. Oh, a few more questions are thrown in. Are there any mosquitoes? Not at this time of year next to the ocean. Now, will there be a mosquito or two? Maybe, but this is not a trip that's inundated with mosquitoes, let's just say, because of the fact that we're on the ocean all day long. So we can leave the fly repellent at home. No problem there. Thanks for that question. That's great. Okay, well, this has been great having a one-way conversation with you, but I do appreciate your time, your attention, and hopefully this has answered some of your questions for you and has gotten you excited for what I believe is a really amazing experience. And hopefully we can see you in Igloolik with us this July. Take care, and thanks so much.